If you're watching this, I am dead. Nah, I'm just fucking with you. I'm not dead. I am alive and well, and it's not one of those videos. Truth be told, actually, what's not funny is how you're living like you're not dying. You know, riddle me that. That's a pretty bad way to start off a comedy special. So I should say welcome. You know, thank you. You have something called disposable income, and you chose to buy this, which I really appreciate, you know? And times are tough. And trust me or not, they're going to get tougher. Or maybe you're like me. You're like, fuck it. You know, you're the kind of person who goes to a state that has no abortion laws, meets somebody at a bar, and then go home, take him, and then Danny No Glover, 9 months later, you have a baby. Now, that's a lot more regret than this video. It's a couple dollars, right? Between friends. Plus, you're not getting the money back. Truth be told, I actually wanted to charge you guys way more. I didn't know Onlyfans had a price for pussy. That's weird, like $50 pay per view. I thought that shit was priceless, you know, or dick, whatever you're into. But you know what? Actually, I'll tell you how much I want to charge. I want to charge for $500. The story goes like this. We were in Vegas, right? Actually, before I go to the story, I don't understand why people go to Vegas and it's usually girls, and it's like the room says $69.99, and then coming out the room is like 69 women. It's just like a clown room. I don't understand. Honestly, the easiest pickup line is going up to a girl and being like, hey, how many people would you come here with? And how many stay in your room? Which at this present context, I get it sounds hella creepy. But no, honestly, I just give him my number and I've said, if you want to lay your head in a bed, hit me up. And it's kind of like those new companies where, you know, you buy now and pay later. You know, you put the pussy on layaway. But anyway, I digress. So I'm in Vegas, and I'm with these three guys. And, you know, I don't know if you've ever been, but it's a place where that saying, you need a vacation from a vacation. Yeah, because your moral bank is out. You need a medic, an IV stat. And it's the last day into the last night. So we're roaming around, and pretty much we just had breakfast. And I'm like, we need something to do, because we're in our 20s. We're not like in our 40s. We don't need a nap. So I think to myself, hey guys, let's go to a day club. Pass a promoter, and he's like, you know what? We're doing a banner for $500. I'm like, $500? This must be off season. He says, yes, it is. And you get drinks and food up to $500. I now sound like that promoter. In any case, two of the guys are down, and one of them, we'll call him B. He isn't down. So we head back to the room. Now, I think this is unfortunate for him or unfortunate for me, but I can see the cabana from our room. And, well, I start in. The reason I start in is because we all think we're players in this group, but I'm a player coach. I put these guys in position to meet girls or guys or trans men, trans women, whatever your flavor is. I'm that guy. Point of it is, they don't understand when you get to a club, you got to talk this loud. And it's like, I want a spit game, not spit my game. But he doesn't get that, right? And even if when you leave a club, you might see somebody and be like, wow, you're the gargoyle, or maybe I'm the gargoyle. Point of it is, day club, you can see everybody, you know, and they can come up and pregame before going out. It's a win-win, people, I'm thinking. In any case, I can't hold back. So I started in on B, and I said, hey, you know, anytime that you go to a graduation party and you pay for a gift, and it's maybe for your sister, I'm going to take the mic like the MC, which stands for Master of Ceremony, and go, for $500. Or let's say you're at a dinner and you're paying for, I don't know, a group of friends. Well, I'm going to come up like I'm the waiter and I'm going to say the bill's for $500. Yeah, I'm that annoying. And I could do this whole special just saying that one joke. I stick to it. It's in my mind. I can't get it out. In any case, he doesn't budge. Night falls. And, well, the devil's nectar comes. I'm going to teach you a few phrases. Devil's nectar is drinks, alcohol, you know? In any case, we go out, and like a waiter, I take their orders. Yep, me, player coach. Like LeBron, putting people in positions to win. I say, what would you like? Hair color, you know, eye color, where they're from, ethnic background. Again, men, women, whatever, drag queen. Just think about it. One is a life choice, and one, the choice of life. Well, we're out, and in line, I do what I do. Yep. And the night goes on, and two of the guys want to get the day club with me. We're like, well, we're going to head back to the room. You know, probably tired, spent, exhausted. We're gonna go chop. Chop is pretty much talk. So we leave, and there we are drinking back in the room, and guess who pops in? Through the door, this guy B and a girl who I'm like, oh my God, I should have charged him because I introduced him. And she's all talking like, oh my God, he took me to gambling in a casino. I'm like, what, gambling, casino? Then she says, we even went on a roller coaster. One of the other guys is like, I didn't even know there was roller coasters in Vegas. And finally she says, he even took me to a strip club. Now I don't understand, you know, taking sand to the beach, but anyway. Finally, one of the guys is like, yo, B, how much did that cost you? The girl looks at him and gets in my face and says, for 500. I thought that shit was not funny until I recorded him having sex in the bathroom. And I sent him, you know, the video with a ransom letter saying, you know, pay up $500. I'm kidding. Pretty much this video, I hope his wife sees it and has known for years he cheated back in Vegas. Yes, I am that petty. I will hang on to something and just deliver it later. The joke keeps giving. It's a joke that keeps on paying. That's right. Oh, goodness. But no, I bet you're wondering why I called this special Hold My Beer. Well, I think I'm the kind of person that's, like you've heard, wants to say what's on my mind. It's not that I lack tact or sometimes I don't understand the social settings, but I think it's funny as fuck. So I want to say it. But, you know, because of friends, because of religion, because of jobs, relationships. I remember this one time I was at a restaurant, right? I think it was like Huntington Beach. And I'm there with, it was like a group date. I didn't understand why we had to break out in like 4 other couples. So I'm thinking, man, this bill's gonna be expensive. And so are the other guys. I bet they wanted to get deadhead. Deadhead, his head is so good you could die from the head. In any case, here we are gonna just kill our pockets. So there's one married couple, one engaged, one, I think boyfriend and girlfriend, and divorcee. We don't judge, we invite them all. Inclusive, I told you people. So the waitress comes by and she's gonna take our drink orders. You know, people old fashioned, one person ordered sex on the beach. I think someone ordered vodka, you know, tall glass. The divorcee was going through some things. Look, we told them, you know, you could go AA meeting. They kept bringing people back to drink with. It wasn't working. Or maybe it was, I don't know. Anyway, the waitress gets to me and she's like, well, what would you like? And I was in a different country and I'd had this shot. And this is before WAP. So I asked for a wet pussy. I thought, you know, it was normal. The guys with all their girls start laughing and the girl's like, oh my God, if he was my man, I'd hit him. And at that moment, my girl, Will Smith and Weston's me. I'm like, oh my goodness. Now, okay, hold on. This is just to Will Smith. I have a perfect script for you, right? It's about a guy who acts better in his movies than in real life. Oh, that actually happened, my bad. But look, the script is actually there, Hollywood, and Will's had a good run. You know, we know how Hollywood is, one in, one out. I'm 6'2", you know, I can bleach my skin. I'll do anything for some money, come on now. But I know Chris will do the right thing, you know? I didn't even mean that. Chris will, anyway. You know, when it comes to black on black violence, they have to stand up. You know, this is a moment for the Bloods and Crips to see that we can overcome. Or maybe it's not. In any case, I remember when black violence happened to me. I was in one of the most livable cities, and I was studying for law school. Well, it was an LSAT, right? So some law schools require this test. In any case, I was walking from the library over to a gym. Yeah, I didn't just want to work out my good brain. I wanted to, you know, have a good body. Most people become slouchy and big and fat. In any case, I'm walking, and I'm thinking about, man, one day I'm about to be the star-studded lawyer, right? And for some reason, I don't know, I guess I didn't look up, but there were 5 black guys heading my way. And I guess I didn't give them the compulsory nigga nod, which is, you know, you got head nod all the time. Head nod everybody, every black person. So one black guy runs up in front of me, and I'm taking off my Dr. Dre beat headphones, no endorsement, but I love how you guys did that, giving every celebrity. So if you want to send me some with some endorsements, I'm willing. And before I can say, hey, what's up? Well, in my peripheral, I catch a blow. Now, I don't know if you've ever been hit, but your mind is like an earthquake. That's why my heart goes out to all you football players, rugby players, and boxers. I'm discombobulated. I don't understand where I'm at. And to tell you the truth, In fights, I'm 1-6. So I'm not really a good fighter. It's not like a movie where you get into your stance like, wah. No. It's nothing like that. And before I can register, another blow hits my face. And I'm like, crisis mode. We are in crisis mode. Now, thank heavens, my positioning is towards where I'm trying to head to, which is the gym. And these guys, for some reason, I don't know if I blacked out and beat them up, they're on the other side where I came from. Now, your body goes through something called fight or flight. And I Usain bolted the hell out of there. Are you out your mind? I did not stare. I'm not a street fighter. I told you. I have no problems with that chain. I ran as fast as I could to the gym, got a pre-workout in, you know, didn't even need to stretch. And I get there, and I'm panting. I'm like, and the gym attendant is like, are you okay? You're bleeding. And I'm like, yeah, no, duh. Can we call the cops? Why do I need to tell you the story? You can hear it when I'm crying to the police. Now, you guys might be like, this guy backs blue. I don't need to back blue. They took the job. They are public servants. This is the time to shine. Protect and serve your community. Well, I call them, and I knew in the back of my mind there would be 5 black guys dead later on in the evening news, but no, I'm kidding. If you get really mad at that, I'm not the one making the killings, and, you know, at the same notion, these were good cops. In any case, I didn't understand why it took me calling them, because this city had CCTV. So why couldn't they register that these guys were vandalizing the entire day? I don't know. The point of it is, I was really deep into religion, and I remember going to church. And at these places, they want you to, well, pray and praise and share, kind of like I just told you guys. So I tell the story. I remember we broke out, and a lady comes up to me and is like, you know what? I think God wanted you to get hit. And I was like, what? So I moved my positioning of my body, putting my back foot, and no, I'm just kidding. I didn't hit her. I just left the church. I was like, I'm not going to believe in that fictional shit. If God was real at that point, he would have stopped his pop. Everyone would be like, oh my God, you'd have had like 6 believers right there. You know what I mean? Or even punched himself in the face. That shit would have been amazing. But no, anyway, the judge gives me a call. Well, not literally, but it was one of these progressive places where they wanted the victim to have a say in the sentencing. So I go there and I'm like, well, let me put myself in an eggshell principle, right? Meet the people where they are. And I was like, let me mind judo, wanobi, kenobi them, which pretty much means I said to the judge, if they forgive themselves, yeah, I know, right? Forgive themselves. And they find that they vow, not just promise. I don't want that. I want it to the marriage level. Vow never to do this again. Then they should sentence themselves, right? I'm really in there. The judge looks at it and it's like, really? I'm like, hell no. You know, build the jail on top of them. I don't care because they're black. I don't want them to go to jail. Yes. And you know what? Actually, let it be a profit jail where I make the profit on them being in jail. What the hell is going on? No, honestly, I'm just like, you can't even go marching. If there's police brutality that you're marching about, well, you were brutal to me. It's the same thing. I'm sure if you had a gun that day, you'd have shot me. So no, I'm not going to just pass you by. If I see you at a march, no marching for you, no marching for you, you know? But this is probably all trauma. I'm back at that dining table, right? I've just been hit. Will Smith and Wesson by my girl. She's a white girl. She's not a white cop. She didn't shoot me. So the waitress, I look at her, and she's flushed in the face. And I'm like, actually, man, I wanted this shot. But, you know, I adorned a goatee at the time, and I was like, you know, I'm going to double down on this. So I was like, do you know I have this goatee? And she said, why? And I thought, oh, well, you know, I got to go in now. She's like, well, I said, well, I have it because they sit on my face. Again, very inclusive. They, you know, open pronouns, but mostly women, post-op, you know, with the pussy wet. Anyway, whole thing. Again, I get hit. But no, the story, actually, the moral of it is that, you know, none of them knew at that table I had been a waiter in D.C. And I don't know, any job you get good at it over time, right? You either study for it or you get into the job. And really, it's dealing with people, right? Your emotional intelligence that makes you either good at it or bad at it, right? After you've pretty much picked up the nuances of it. So with me, as you've come to find out, not only do I want to say what I want to say, I want a good, like, dinner story, right? Like, that happened. And as a waiter in D.C., I remember with the wait staff, I came up with this game. I said, anybody who has an interesting story during the week, well, you get the $100, multiply that by how many wait staff. That's a good way to, like, camaraderie. Make something entertaining. It's boring just serving drinks, getting drinks, giving food, getting food. So mundane. So I keep losing at my own game. I'm shelling out $100 left, right, and center. To the point where I'm like, you know what? I'm going to make this happen, this story. So one day my manager comes to me and is like, hey, this dude called. He's going to propose. Just take the ring, put it in the champagne. There you go. The whole situation is happening right in front of me. Guy gets on his knee, and I kiss him. I'm ready for this money. And the oddest thing is, he kissed me all the way till we stood on our feet. I'm like, I didn't know I was gay, but I looked at the wife to be and I said, at least I've saved you for marriage. The crazy thing is I didn't even win that week. That was, I GG'd. I done gone gay for, I won. I mean, we went home, he gave me head. Don't look at me like that. Again, Hollywood, I'll act in the movie Moonlight 2. I'll be a gay character for some money. But no, honestly, I don't understand why everyone was so mad at me about asking for, pussy water. Truth be told, there's no guy who's ever going to get in trouble, or like trouble as in rape, for having someone sit on their face. Let's say a girl calls 2 detectives, right? And she's like, I've been raped. And the detective's like, okay, what happened? And she's like, well, I met this guy in Vegas, and he told me to come over to his place. And they're like, oh, is that what happened? She's like, no, actually, I slept peacefully. Okay, then how'd you get raped? Well, I invited him to my state, and he came. And then he put out some tarp. Is that when you got raped? No. I sat on his face. And then what happened? Well, he knew his ABCs, frontwards and backwards. And, I started cussing. I said, shit, fuck, I got wet. My body got tight. Is that what happened? No, I released. And then I said the Lord's name in vain. Jesus Christ. Ma'am, I think you raped him. Yes, I raped him in the face. And there's no guy who ever has someone sit on his face going to be the one who got in a rape situation. But as I say that, I think to myself, at a time when I worked at a job, and they actually try to say that this kind of guy who gives, doesn't try and get head or have sex, but just, have someone sit on their face and pleasure them. It happened like this. I had started a job and I felt really bad for my supervisor because she was like, you watch those shows and the person is 1,000 pounds overweight. She was like that. It hurt for me to walk, and hurt for me to look at her, just do anything. I was like, goodness gracious. But I quickly stopped feeling bad for her because she was terrible in the sense that, 3 weeks in, she comes up to me and she's like, hey, we need you to do these modules and processes and procedures. And I'm like, is that something for operations? I'm just like a manager in this department. And she's like, no, you need to do it. And I said, or else what? She says, or else. So at the time, I looked at my bank account. My bank account said, you need the job. I looked at the check. The checks were cleared. So I did it. Well, then a couple weeks go by, and she's like, well, we're moving this lady from this department, and we're moving her to your new department. We'd like you to train her. And I'm like, what? Why? Do I get a training fee? She's like, no. I look at the 2 other more senior managers. I'm like, why can't they? She's like, or else. I said, or else. I look at my bank account. Bank account says, you need this job. I look at my paycheck. The check is cleared. So I started training this new manager, and she's terrible. She's terrible because she's the kind of person who talks about just having a baby, but then she's only hitting on the good-looking guys. And as I said, it's soft people skills that get you and your colleagues liking each other. And I'm like, man, I'm wearing all her sins because I'm getting in trouble for her not doing anything right. And I think to myself, how can I manage her up, right? So I'm like, you know what? One of these Fridays, I'm going to take her out. I'm going to spend my own money and in a different environment, not so stressful with work going by. I'm going to see what she can process, the things she's doing right, things she's doing wrong, right? That sounds like I could be a really good-ass manager. Well, one Friday comes, she pulls out in front of me. I pull out behind her in the parking lot. And coming the other way is one of our colleagues, and she stops him and asks, hey, would you like to come out to dinner? And I'm like, this is not a group activity. I don't understand why it's a one-on-one, peer on peer. In any case, he's like, no, I'm going home to my wife. And she waves goodbye with an open container, which I'm like, I'm probably going to hear about that on Monday. In any case, we get to the restaurant, which is a couple of blocks away, and she just starts woofing, you know, food, drinks, cutlery, dishware. I'm like, this woman has never seen food or silverware everywhere. In any case, she's getting quite intoxicated, and before I can tell her, hey, let me take you home, a gentleman comes over who I recognize, and we'll call him F. And I asked C, I'm like, C's the girl, hey, did you invite F? She's like, yeah. I'm like, okay, this has definitely become a group session. Why the F did you do that? In any case, he sits down and him two just start, you know, woofing, you know, silverware, dishware. I'm like, goodness gracious. So really, I'm looking at C like, hey, we need to take you home. And at this moment, I'm asking for her husband's number so you can come pick her up, right? Not my responsibility. She takes her phone and puts it in her coochie. Now, you're probably thinking, this is where Danny raped. No, I did not. I did not reach because I actually just asked for the dude's phone number. I could still get the phone number from her verbally, put it in my phone, he could come. I did not understand her logic. In any case, I'm telling F, let's take C home. And at that point, I see a young lady who we'll call you heading for the table. Any case, I ask F, hey, F, did you invite you? He says, yeah, I did. You know I like her. And I'm like, cool, F you. Everyone's having a merry old time. U takes off, F escorts her out. I'm pleading with C to leave because, again, I'm wearing her sins. I don't understand why managers come up at bar restaurants and ask their friends, hey, this person needs to stop drinking. Cut them off. Tell your waitstaff. It's not my responsibility. I literally will move tables, close that tab, and like disown you. I didn't understand that. In any case, F comes back, I sign a check, and C falls into F's arms. At which point he walks her out, and I have eyes on her the entire time. To the point in the front of the restaurant, F like leans back on a pillar and is like, yeah, I'll see you guys later. I'm like, yeah, you're effing cool for that. And I'm trying to escort C to the car, and she's stumbling everywhere. And I lose her in a turn of a car, and I hear a wailing. Not crying, a wailing. At which point, I come around the car, and I notice someone fully clothed, and they hit me with the R word, you know? Not R. Kelly, like, you know, at some places, I don't know, whether it be a bar or wedding, and I ask for R. Kelly's song to come on, which don't get mad at me, people. Get mad at the streaming services. The music I can detach from his actions. He's in jail, okay? And plus, there are plenty of artists then and now that have done worse things. But, you know, and maybe reparations. No, it wasn't reparations where people had enslaved and they got paid for those people they enslaved as far as, you know, when they got freed. No, it wasn't the enslaved who got the reparations. She's not that progressive. At this point, it's, you know, I don't know if you've ever been hit with the rape word. That's the R word. And it hits you back. Now, I'm looking at her, and I'm thinking to myself, I don't believe her. Not because that the restaurant was fully lit, or the fact that, you know, the entire time I had eyes on her. No, or that even when she went into the parking lot, there were patrons coming in and out of the restaurant. No, I don't believe her because she's a fatty. Okay, and without a P. I'm sorry, I know people are gonna get mad at me, but okay, I remember one girlfriend, she used to be big. I'd seen her in a picture, and I even told her, I was like, were you seeing someone during this time? She was like, yeah. I was like, that person actually loves you. I don't, because if you got fat, you know, probably wouldn't. No model is ever gonna go and stand up for like, hey, I stand for this fatty. It's not possible. And just 1 second, before you get really mad at me, I've just been talking about fucking a fatty. Now this is raping a fatty. This is like beyond. I don't even understand. It's not like you're someone with a BBL. Like, this is someone who could get a BBL. And if you guys don't know what that is, it's a Brazilian butt lift. This is the perfect person because they could literally, you know, get a new ass, tummy tuck, tit. Now that person's rapeable. I know that's really bad to say, but truth be told, it really is. In any case, I snap out of this kind of thinking. And I'm like, okay, let me go into my Law and Order rape kit, right? Benson, right? I got that mindset. And this young lady has the audacity to tell me, no, take me home. Which I'm like, wow, this is really just, you know, making me look like I raped and took you on a date and dropped you off. I don't understand this. So anyway, I do a roll by. It's not a drive by. She gets in the car, I open the door, and I kick her out. She rolls into the door, and the husband opens. I'm like, skirt. I drive out of there. In any case, I know Monday my boss is going to call me, and he does. Ring, ring. I pick up the phone, and he says, we got to let you go. Now, at this juncture, obviously, I got to ask, for what cause? And you guess it. It's not because of cohort or cooperation. No, it's co-rape. I'm like, I got let go for I couldn't even believe that's a thing. I said, do you have any evidence? He's like, no, we have nothing. We don't even have the cameras. You know what? But she's stating that, do you have a rape kit? Nothing. I am out on the curb. In any case, I always was suspicious that it was my supervisor who put me up to this. And weeks go by, and the fact of the matter is I get a text, and I'm reading the text, and it says, God don't like ugly. And I'm like, oh, it was the fatty. And I think, you know what? I'm gonna text back. God doesn't let fat people into heaven. You know, hopefully that motivated her. I had to have the last word. I had to. But no, you know, even when I held my tongue there and that didn't go the right way, even in friendships, it hasn't. I've known not to hold my tongue, and still I'm the one who, well, yeah, I'm the one who got fucked over. There was a friend of mine, right? He was cool in college. Well, he wasn't cool. He wasn't shit. You know, I can't say he was a cool guy. The point of it, after college, I'd kind of graduated around a time where things were tough. And so I couldn't really get a job. And his dad owned a company. Well, in the state that I was living in, you could become a health insurance agent and have a broker of record connected to a brokerage firm. And that's what his dad owned. Really boring stuff. Point of it is, I did that, right? No health plan or health medical group was hiring. And, well, I was going to be, you know, like a contractor. I could be independent and get commission. So I started working there, and some things started being funny, where I felt like he wanted me to be an indentured servant. And I was like, you know, I don't know about this, but, you know, I kept on going with it, held my tongue. To the point that one day I was walking through the office, and he stopped me. He's like, you know, my son's going to own all this, and you're going to work for him. And I'm like, I don't think he understands what a 1099 is. Like, I don't work. Anyway, do you mind signing this? This lady needs her dental plan. So anyway, I got really clever, and I was like, you know, I'm going to go to a different territory, which is like 3 hours away, so I can kind of subtly tell him, no, I'm not always going to be there for your son. In any case, I do the move, and my birthday rolls around, and I invite, you know, all my friends, and, well, his son was still hanging on as acquaintance, and we go out. Everything goes well. I go home. I get birthday sex with my girl. Things are good, you know. I wake up in the morning to a call. And it said, as I picked up, will you accept this call from? And I'm like, my black friend. And then it says the dude's name. And I'm like, oh, Mexican, Filipino, close second, right? And he's like, hey, can you come pick me up? I got caught up last night. And I'm like, you know, looking at my girl who has plans for the day. And I know she's going to be upset because I'm one of those people who, you know, I don't just like birthday or birthday weekend. You know, it's a whole year. You got to go 365, day to day. So anyway, I'm like, yeah, I'll go pick you up. And the next call I get is from his dad. And honestly, I thought I developed some new technology where I could feel the spitting from his dad. And I'm like, my goodness, this is something intense. And he's like pretty much finishing up the call by telling me, I'm never going to talk to you like a human. And I was like, yeah, I was dead on about that indentured servitude. This is more like slavery. And I say, look, you got to talk to me, maybe not personally, but in business. You know, we still kind of, I don't know why I'm explaining this to him. And he's like, never as a human. And I'm like, never? Click, you know, because, well, the conversation had ended on my end, right? I'm non-human at that point. So I go pick up his son, and I'm like, oh, his son actually thinks like his dad. Where in the car, as soon as I picked him up, he said, if only I'd had a driver. And I'm thinking, this motherfucker thinks I'm Morgan Freeman to his driving Miss Daisy, which I couldn't fathom. I look at my girl, and I'm like, you know what? Something has changed. So I drop him off, and a couple weeks go by, and I'm like, you know what? I'm getting out of this whole situation. There are other jobs out there. I'm done holding my tongue. In any case, I'm like, I'm gonna go drop off all my stuff at his dad's house, right? And so I do so, probably to be more dramatic than anything. I could have just, left it at the office. But in any case, I go over there, and as I'm dropping it off, his stepmom comes out. It was one of those kind of businesses that, she was sucking dick. She had become VP, no credentials, no background, no education, but, she's sleeping with her husband. So she's VP, and I'm like, what are you doing at home? You never work, but I get it, right? One of those relationships. And I'm like explaining to her, and she's like, come inside, I don't understand. I'm like, what? You haven't seen the treatment or how things are going on? She's like, come inside, we can talk about it. So reluctantly, I went in, I went inside, and I came out afternoon delight. I came out. No, I'm kidding. I didn't do that. I'm just trying to sow some seeds of doubt in the dad's mind, Look at his wife, who looks like a blowfish. There's some people who look like, animals. She looked like a reptile. Reptile? Fish. Fishery. Anyway, I didn't go fishing. That's the point. But no, one thing I didn't understand about this dad was he wanted to be best friends with his son, right? To the point like no one else could be friends. He lived like fuck his boy. He wanted to fuck boy. To the point where it was detrimental. I remember actually, right, before I left completely, one time his son, we'll call him fuckboy, right? You know him as that now. Fuckboy had a girl that he had been seeing, and he came to me and he was like, there's something about her skin, and it doesn't kind of snap back. And I'm like, snap back? He'd come to a connoisseur because, obviously I've been with women who have been fatties. Yeah, I know, right? You didn't see that one coming. You thought I didn't like fatties without the P too. But no, when they lose weight, women sometimes, and you don't go to the gym, your skin doesn't come back. So I tried to explain, or maybe if they've been pregnant and had a baby. And he's like, okay. And so I said, maybe go to the gym with her and ask her, outright, get to the crux of the matter, the issue. In any case, I wanted to do some investigating on my own, some CSI work. So I started asking around, and I actually got an answer. And so I didn't call him. No, I didn't text him. I didn't give him any proof to show her. Because he's, that kind of guy. Even though your best friend helps you out, he becomes a bitch. And he shows his girl, who is not forever, but we've been friends. In any case, I go over to his house, drive over in the middle of the night. I knock. There's his dad, the blowfish, Nemo, Dory, the step-siblings, and the BM, the baby mama. And I'm like, dude, come outside, I have something important to tell you. Probably had terminal cancer or something, terminal illness. So he comes in, what's wrong? And I'm like, no, I'm not dying. I always use that joke. Terrible. So anyway, we're outside, and I'm like showing him this text message from actually her cousin. And it really says that like she has a whole child and family, like another dude. And he hits my phone out of my hands until he like falls on the ground. I'm like, dude, what the hell? This is a terrible reaction. You owe me a new phone. He like cracked. He's like, I don't believe you. I'm like, what? Dude, you gotta like tone down your anger. In any case, I'm like, calm down, look, you really don't wanna be walking down the street and the baby daddy with 4 of his friends just beat you up out of nowhere, that's not a good look. And so finally I reasoned with him and I'm like, let's set up a sting operation, right? Where we go to a restaurant, invite her out, I'll be like sitting back to her and if she lies to you, I'll turn around and I'll be like, gotcha, bitch, In any case, he agrees. Because I'm Viola Davis to like helping him. He's like you was good, you was kind of like really nurturing this guy his whole life. She never shows, right? And he forgets about her, which I'm happy about. In any case, Christmas party comes around, and I'm at one of the hotels with my girl at the time. And I'm guessing he feels sad or he's feeling lonely. So he asks me in that moment, he's like, do you think I should hit her up? And I'm like, man, I thought we were done with this. What? Like, do you not understand, like, you're about to become an instant dad. Like, instant coffee, just like that. Like, no tomorrow, this is your kid, plus the whole plethora of issues with the baby daddy. And he's like, no, you're right. And he finally, like, gets in his mind. He's like, man, it's crazy, because my dad did not give me that advice. And I was like, your dad really wants to fuck you up, man. Fuck boy. I told you, he wants to fuck boy. But yeah, even though I had not held my tongue in those scenarios and really tried to help him out, it just felt like it wasn't getting heard. And in other situations where I felt like not holding my tongue or would have, been the better thing to do, against better judgment, I did hold my tongue. I remember seeing this girl, and it was unfortunate during the murder of George Floyd, where I hope his murderer is in jail getting booty raped constantly, like 23 and 1, but 24 and 0 and out. But there were marches and protests and activism. And I remember it being on TV and being at her house. And her family were just saying how violent and looting and property damage. And I really wanted to poke my head up and be like, well, they have insurance. It's not like this guy can boop, 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 like Mario and like have a third life or something. Like, you only get one life. In any case, I didn't say anything, and I thought to myself, well, maybe there'll be a situation where there's other property damage, and there'll be like one race, and then January 6th, 2021 came around. So I remember we were living on the West Coast, and I woke the shit out of my girl. I said, get up, I'm going to your parents. And so I shook her, and she's like, I'm not even dressed. I said, you can shower there at your family house. So I got in the car, I drove over, parked. The parents were like, what's going on? I was like, I'll cook you guys scrambled eggs. And I didn't understand why the TV wasn't on. Felt like they knew something. I thought something was up. But, I started saying stuff like, I used to be a waiter in D.C., and that didn't jog their memory. And I was like, what's the difference of spelling between capital and capital? That, again, nothing. Until finally I yelled out, you guys are racist, which obviously didn't go down well. But, I couldn't hold my tongue back. I couldn't. Like, even, I wanted to hold my tongue and say, I don't want to go marching, right? Obviously, new girl, that one ended with my outburst. And she was so minded about protesting and Black Lives Matter. And I was like, you know what? I don't feel like I'm paying my respects by writing some slogan on a pizza cardboard box. But, there are other ways we can do this. And she was like, no, we need to go. And I was like, you know what? I don't want to go because the fact of the matter is when you go marching and it's sanctioned, right? Like, you have to talk to the police. And they have pretty much like, facial recognition by, thank Amazon. In any case, they're looking at you and being like, yeah, she's just protesting. Looking at me like he's next. And honestly, even if I'm not next and they're actually the good cops, well, they're getting overtime. Why the fuck would I want to give them my tax dollars? It doesn't make sense. So anyway, you tell them the route, right? So the protesters tell the cops the route. They're in collusion at this point. And if you get off the route, you're going to get pep sprayed the shit out of you, and I'm probably going to get beanbagged. Like, that's that worst, the bullet's next. But so anyway, I relinquish. And so my girl wanted to go with this couple that, we were kind of neighbors with. By the way, at this point, I just want to tell everyone I date white girls. I remember 2 black girls came up to me and they were like, give us a chance. And so, I called my girl at the time and I was like, look, I got to break up with you. I got something to do real quick. She's like, wow. I was like, no, click. And so anyway, I went to the bathroom with the 2 black girls. I unzipped and I was like, here's a chance. No, I'm kidding. I didn't call my girlfriend. I had to cheat on her. She had to really feel it. But no, honestly, the reason I do that is I'm doing the Lord's work. Because this is my argument, right? Let's say I'm not at a Klans meet, I'm kidding, a hooded picnic, and someone is spouting off all these racial slurs. Well, there's kind of the thing about like the one drop rule, right? If you're black and you have a baby with someone, then that kid is black. Well, I have a lick here, a dick here, now you're a nigga. So I don't even have to have a baby. So if this person is spouting off all these racial slurs, like the N-word, well, you never know. You might have a nigga in your midst, to be honest. Your daughter, your son, I'm not above putting in the booty hole. Plus, Roe v. Wade has no jurisdiction there. All the way through to grandma and Gam Gam. I'll take it back to segregation days where she can crow, my name is Jim. But no, so I'm there. We're about to go marching. And as we're marching, I'm like, you could just be calling out representative and changing qualified immunity. Everybody could just call on their phone. And anyway, so we start marching and the chants are going and they're saying, no justice, no peace. And I'm like, there's soon going to be still no justice. but there will be peace, like in the streets. You guys got to go home. I don't understand. This is not going to go forever. It's through legislation. Anyway, the chants change, right? They're like, head to the freeway. And well, I started to think to myself, there's no way these cops are going to let us go on the freeway and start protesting. So I tell the two niggas that, well, obviously the girl, the wife of the husband, had become with a nigga since she had slept with two other black guys, right? She had been a nigga, and then my girl is a nigga. So two niggas and one white guy. I'm kidding. You know you're marching with white people because as soon as you leave a march, which is at the beat of a black man, they started power walking like we're in the Olympics. So we get back to the apartment complex, and I remember I'm panting. I'm like, I'm thinking in the back of my head, man, they would march for me, but they won't keep up with me. So in any case, after a march, it's kind of weird. You know, what do you do? How do you decompress? And we chose we were going to, well, drink. You know, that makes things a little bit better. And so I was like, you know, I'll perpetuate this white guilt. I'll be like, let's drink some Hennessy, which, again, I don't know why that's the choice of black people drink, you know. Once I take off, I'm going to start an alcohol company that's called the PBT, the black people drink. All the rappers can sing it, you know, because Hennessy is owned by a conglomerate, which is not owned by black people. Anyway, plus it's like, if I was a car, I'm overheating. That shit is hot. Anyway, she asks me, the wife of the neighbor is like, what would you like to eat? Like, what canapes? Which I should tell you, you know, I grew up around whites, I know the verbiage. I'm like, pig in a blanket, you know, that shit is delicious. In any case, they cut on the TV, and at that moment, they see that on TV that, you know, all the protesters are now getting pepper sprayed, and unfortunately, one black guy has been shot in the freeway. And they're like, oh my God, you know, Danny, how'd you know? And I'm like, well, you know, nigga intuition, I don't know. And the husband believes me and is so gullible. I'm like, you know what George Floyd would have wanted? You know, me to fuck your wife? No, I'm kidding. It would have been consensual unless she had allowed it, you know? But no, honestly, I don't understand why I couldn't say that I didn't want to go marching. You know, if the problem is with bad cops, well then let me deal with bad cops. You know, if cops aren't going to tell on each other, man, I'll take them one at a time off the force. Like, again, at this apartment complex, I remember meeting a cop through his wife. His wife had come up to me and had asked me, oh, you know, when'd you move in? And I told her and asked me about my hobbies. And I was explaining how I go to this gym where they use a heart rate monitor so you can see on the gym that, you know, the board, how you're dying, you're exhausted. I didn't have one. I didn't really mind not dying, seeing that I'm dying. And she's like, no, I'll go up to your apartment and I'll get you one. And I was like, wow, that's really nice of her. And she gives it to me and I'm like, you're not going to use it? She's like, no, I don't want to, but it's now connected to my husband's email. And I'm like, that's a bit weird. Yeah, he wants to see if I'm working out. I'm like, oh, okay, that's all right. So anyway, I'm like, where's your husband? We talk about it. And we're outside, and so I walk over to him, and he's sitting under a blanket. He's a pig. And in any case, I'm the kind of person, if someone does something nice for me, I gotta reciprocate. I have to. So I was like, we gotta go out to dinner. So we're out at dinner, and it goes fine, and we go back to my apartment, and I asked my girl at the time, I'm like, yo, that was weird, you know? And she's like, what happened? And I said, well, didn't you see him like put his hand over her mouth and say, don't talk when I'm talking? And she's like, no, I didn't. But, you know, can you put your hand over my throat? You know, again, it's context, people, which I did. And consensual, no rape. And so anyway, weeks go by and I don't see his wife around, right? This cop's wife, and he's telling me she's left. Come to find out they're getting a divorce. And I'm like, oh, this is, you know, a bad one. I got a bad one on the hook. And I found out he's always home. You know, this guy is always off duty. So I'm like asking him, you know, questions like, why do cops not like black guys? And he's like, you're tall, you're big. I'm like, that's it? Like, that's the justification? In any case, through it all, I find out he's been like, you know, off duty and on admin leave because he's been curb stomping, and allegedly, he actually has the rape case. You know, he's the one raping the fatties. But anyway, I'm like, you know what? I'm gonna look past it. Let me really get to know this guy and his psyche. And he invites me to the mountains, and we go gambling with his new girl. And so I go. and we're there at a casino, and I'm gambling, and he comes up to me, and he's like, time to go back. I'm like, dude, I'm good. I'll just catch a shared ride. It's all right. And he's like, no, it's time to go back. So I look at his girl, and I'm like, oh, we're going to tag team. Cool. Like, yes, let's go. So I go back. I'm in the living room. Both of them go to the bedroom. And I'm like, that's a bit weird. Okay, I'll get started out here by myself. In any case, pants down. He comes up, and he puts a gun underneath my right here. And I'm like, oh, my God. And he's like, when I tell you to come, you come. And I'm like, wow. So I go and open the chamber and look and close it. And I said, if you ever put a gun to my neck, make sure there's a bullet in the chamber. No, I didn't say that. Of course not. I called every rideshare company. I was not discriminating. Whichever car came first, I was going to take it. I hop in, and I call my girl at the time, and I'm like, yo, this guy is the one. He's crazy. We need to get him off the force fast. And she's like, you're in too deep. You need to get out. I was like, no. It's either me or him. I know if he's in uniform, he's going to shoot me the next time. So I got to get him off now. In any case, weeks go by, and I'm like, let me go back in with a bottle of whiskey, which I do, and we're drinking. And anyway, he swings on me, and I run out. Again, I told you, if I was a pilot, my call sign would be, bitch, come in, bitch, come in. Like, I run out. I'm a runner. I'm a track star. I'm running down the corridor, the hallway. And all these apartment doors start opening out because I'm yelling out, an off-duty on admin leave cop has hit me. It's a long sentence. I don't know. I don't know if they heard me. They look to me and they're like, black guy. They look to him. He presents white. And they just shut their doors. And I'm like, no marching. Like, you can't go marching. I've had to put like sticky notes after. I was like, I saw you. Don't let me see you marching for Black Lives. Because what? You deal with the macro, but not the micro. Like, literally, case in point, black cop. Anyway, off-duty, admin leave. Point of it, I run over to the North Tower where I used to live, and he's in the South Tower. And I tell my girl, hey, call the cops. She's like, why? I say, well, you have a white voice. They'll come quicker. And before I'm even downstairs, they're all down there. They're like, what happened? Where is he? And I point to his apartment, and they start lining up in formation. I don't know if they're listening to the Beyonce song. And they ask me, they're like, hey, do you need medical attention? And I'm like, medical attention? What? Like, don't ask me if I'm bleeding, man. Get the story after. Look, go get him now. The pursuit is hot. And they just keep asking, do you need medical attention? I'm like, what in the hell? And that moment, I didn't know, unbeknownst to me, my girl comes out. They're like, nigga in the side, nigga inside. I'm like, oh shit. I look at her, I'm like, they know she's a nigga, because I fucked her. And in any case, I'm like, oh no, it's not that, because the guns are drawn on me. I don't know why a white girl comes around a black guy now. I'm like, I called you guys. Well, she called, but you get what I mean. And again, they just keep repeating, do you need medical attention? To her, which this now was weird. And I look at her and I'm like, don't ever say I didn't show you the blue wall. Like, this is pretty magical. I had to, like, in the moment, I had to take a step back and I was like, wow, we're really seeing it live, live and direct. So we go back upstairs and I'm, goodness gracious, I'm amped. And I'm like, pacing. And she looks at me, my girl, and is like, do you need medical attention? I'm like, oh. She's a cop. But no, I settle down. She puts her hand on my heart. And at that point, she's like, your heart is like beating out of your chest. And we both look at each other. As I get to the bedroom, and I put out the heart rate monitor. And I worked her out. I hope that shit on his email kept popping up every hour. Workout session, workout session. That's how I dealt with it, man. But no, wherever that cop is, I want him to know this, truly for me. I remember he told me, you're green lit. Like, that means I guess you want to kill me. What he didn't know was, that it's you and many other cops that haven't told me, so, ooh. But no, family, friends, so many people. I don't know why I evoke that emotion. But I'd always told people that, love and hate are very close to one another, those emotions. To me, if you really hate me, right, and you'd be like, that's really like, wow, that person is just over it, even someone, I do this thing with girls that I get with, right? And it's like, I ask them, what's your number? And the thing is, maybe it's rooted in psychology. It's just, I don't even care about the number. It's like, are you going to be honest? To tell a perfect stranger. At this point, we haven't had any contact. And are you willing to tell them the truth? So, this girl I really like, she says, you're lucky 11. And I'm like, woo! I'm one digit out of two digits. I don't know what that is, but lucky, like, is there even something about being lucky 11? You know, I know lucky 7 or 13. Anyway, I tell her my number, which is probably multiplied by 7, which is not true, but we go on. And a year and 6 months later, I get a call, and she's in another country. And I can't hear her. She, and I'm like, man, I really need to invent this phone because, you know, again, I can taste her tears. I'm like, wow. And I'm like, yo, calm down, what's going on? And she's like, and I'm like, I cannot understand you. It's a waste of an international call. But what I gather is that she's done something, and we're going to have another call. Because as soon as I'm like, calm down, it's okay. She's like, oh, okay, I'll call you back in 24 hours. And I'm like, click, click. So my mind is racing, you know. I'm like, oh my God, you know, was she a man? And if she was, that post-op pussy is wet. But even if she isn't, or maybe she had a baby with somebody, you know, I was at the point where it didn't matter, you see? Anyway, a call comes through 24 hours later, and I'm over it. And maybe that's her psychology. That's what she wanted to do, because you couldn't tell someone right then and there, I lied to you and the reason, right? In any case, she calls and we talk for an hour and a half, everything under the sun. And finally, I'm like, get to the point. You know, I've been waiting 25 hours and 30 minutes. And so she tells me, and she starts by saying, you know, when I told you a lucky 11. And honestly, I'm not even trying to protect her number. It just sounded like cartoon after that. Wah, 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 wah. Because I didn't care. I knew that I should have just taken on J. Cole's theory, which is multiply by 3. She was telling me I'm number 33, which is, you know, Scottie Pippen. And that's fine. And at that moment, I had a decision, you know, should I hold my tongue and make her feel how I want it, or should I just tell her how I felt? And, well, you probably figured out I'm pretty vindictive. So I held my tongue. You know, I wanted her to feel how I felt, right? So, you know, I started saying stuff that I never say, which is like, you're my forever, or eternity, right? Or whichever one comes first, which doesn't even make sense. But the point is, I never say that stuff, but we head to a breakup because she realizes that my words aren't meeting my actions. And I remember she called me and she's like, we're through. And I said, we're through? Click. You don't even need to call me. Just send me it. I'll gather it, right? Through nonverbal cues, which is 70% of, but you know, not body language. Anyway. I remember sending her a jersey of Charles Barkley, number 34, with a note. And I said, good luck to the next guy. But that's me, you know. Sometimes holding my tongue has paid dividends in that situation. You know, one that it kind of is hard to do is long-distance relationship. You got to say what's on your mind. You got to talk about your feelings because you have time difference, you're not together, and really all you have is communication. So there was this time I remember flying in, and I remember, I don't know if you've ever had a long distance relationship in different time zones or internationally, but your phone carriers aren't all the same, the companies. So I didn't want to use my national plan there, so I asked the girl I was with, I said, hey, could you throw me your phone? You got the same contacts, right? I'd taken on her friends. You got the same contacts that I need to call. And she was doing her nighttime routine, and she, you know, throws me the phone. And as I'm going through the phone, clear as day, I remember the dude's name. She had been honest. She was one of the honest ones about telling me not only how many, but their names. And so I'm like, wait, this dude's in her phone, an ex? So I call, and I'm not kidding you. Like, it goes ring, ring. It went, like, it didn't even, it was like he was at the switchboard. And he go, hey. And I don't know how she had supersonic hearing without even dropped her nighttime routine, did a somersault, grabbed the phone and said, hey, I'll call you right back. Click. I'm like, wait, what? What? How do you have a dude who used to love in your phone? And she says, loved? I love him. And I'm like, I don't think she understands past, present, and future tense. Like, this is a problem. And so anyway, we keep arguing, and I'm like, you can't have dude in your phone. And she said, dude, I have another ex. And I'm like, you can't have people that you used to love. And she says, loved? I love him. And I'm like, she definitely doesn't understand past, present, and future tense. At this moment, anyway, we keep going back and forth, and she pretty much tells me that, you know, we need to deal with our exes separately. And I think to myself, oh, okay, I could just leave and never talk to her again, or, well, I could hold my tongue and, kind of show her how I felt later on. So in this situation, I held my tongue. In any case, I remember a girl back in college, she liked me. And I knew if I just hit her up, she would be on the bait. Another sting operation, used it on myself. And this girl, it was weird. She liked me only when she was fat. And then when she wasn't fat, she didn't like me. I was like, what is this? You have some issues. In any case, I hit her up and I started just, really putting it on thick. Saying stuff like, in the future, I'm gonna love you. And I bought one of those snitching devices, the Apple Watch. Anything you say on your phone, it's going there, even without a password. And I started leaving the watch everywhere in the house, right? Everywhere. And my girl just keeps giving it back to me. And I'm like, what's going on? Is she reading these things? To the point like it's unlocked on the message. And anyway, I forget about the sting operation. And she comes up to me and she's like, hey, I spoke to her. And I'm like, her? Her who? She's like, her. And I'm like, look, you got to present your evidence, DA. I'm not going to give you up willingly. Oh, here's the information. So she says, well, I'll spare you the name of the girl. She doesn't matter at this point. And I said, oh, what'd she say? And she says, well, she said you never had sex. And I said, yep, that's right. I'm 1-0. And she kind of walks away from me, my girl. And I'm like, is that it? And she's like, oh, yeah. And she said, you're going to love her in the future. And I'm like, yeah, you do not understand past, present, and future tense. Obviously, that relationship didn't work out. I just remember she had actually called me, and she was like, never speak to me again. Don't text me, don't call me. And I remember just asking, like, are you going to get me out of the contacts? And she's like, contacts? And I say, yeah, I don't want to be next to your other guys. So, I'm trying to spare the next guy to ever say that you still love me. And she's click, obviously. In any case, I composed an email, no body, only subject. I read, you can hit me on Gmail, very childish, very, very childish. But I'd grown out of all this, I was, I no longer needed to know if I wanted to speak my mind or didn't want to. I was at the point where I had met somebody, and this person was someone I was seeing wedding venues. And I remember we'd gotten in the car, we were about to go see her family, and she looks at me and she's like, hey, do you mind telling my parents that I'd like a condensed wedding? And I remember thinking, man, I'm not that kind of guy because, I'll tell my parents what I kind of want and don't want, but your parents, you've known them like 30 years. I've known them like 30 seconds. It doesn't make any sense for me to tell them. But again, I'm like, maybe this is a point where you speak up, right? I told you I've grown. And I was like, maybe this is what you do in marriage, What am I supposed to know? In any case, drive over there, and we're looking at a beautiful view and a body of water in front of us. And I just remember looking at my girl and thinking, wow, she was stunning. This is the body of water I want to be with. This is everything. Looking at her mother, and white people don't age so great, but this mother, she was great. She was going to age well, like fine wine. I remember looking at the dad like, oh, he probably calls January 6th an insurrection instead of treason. But you know what? I'm going to say it, So I told him, I was like, I think we should have a condensed reception and ceremony because you know how times are and we're starting out in our relationship, and maybe in like 2 to 5 years when I'm in my career, we'll have a bigger one. And it's at that moment I knew I'd fucked up. I definitely did, because you see, she was an only daughter. Yep, and their last daughter as well. Anyway, and it was one of those families that's like, Lebanese, Irish, Ethiopian. They probably wanted a big ass wedding. So the dad paused, looked at me, and he said, we don't know who you are or if you have any money, which I was like, valid. I've been telling you this whole special that I haven't really been speaking my mind. And, I'm starting out. I don't really, good point. And then he went on to my parents, which I thought was a bit weird. He said, we don't know your parents and if they have any money. And I was like, that's strange. I didn't know I was marrying into the mob. Plus, you don't need their financials. And then he said, we don't know why you tell people you're a lawyer. And I was like, ouch. I had more degrees than everyone at that table. Plus, my final degree is in Juris Doctorate. So if there was an issue, I could probably find and research the rule then apply all that rule to the issue of issues and give you a reason and sound conclusion. But you know what? He was right. I wasn't a lawyer in that jurisdiction. I didn't say any of that shit. You know what? I looked at that view, and I looked at the body of water. I looked at my girl, and I knew I'd be chasing waterfalls. And I said, you know, I fucked your daughter in like the Western countries and then Eastern countries. I fucked her like in this continent, that continent. I fucked her in this state, like literally land, air, and water. Like I'm so petty. I remember we took a cruise, and she was sick, you know, and I just kept saying, I'm giving her sick dick. Like I was that childish. I fucked her all over. Moreover, I wasn't trying to fuck her over. No, I didn't say any of that. I said it all in my head. What I did do was I took a bite of the food in front of me, and I said, this is some good-ass fish. And I looked at that body of water, and I knew there were more fish in the water. And now you know that was the last time I ever held my tongue. So, you know what? So you can hold this.